good evening, good night. We are getting ready to roll out this most interesting update going over Q3 2024. Thank you for those of you who joined us so far. I know we're going to have some more participants join in, so we'll give everyone a little chance to log in. And this is the first time that I did this sign up option. I'm not sure exactly if it was going to be like a webinar or a Zoom call, so we're learning as we go along. But looking forward to sharing with you guys on this one. Let me try and set this to not require me to have people be admitted. Just give me 1 second on that one.
Good evening, David. Good to see you.
Good evening, Dr. Dice.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody.
All right, so I've disabled the waiting room, so everybody should be automatically able to join. We have people joining from US and Jamaica. I know, I see some people jumping in as well. So we'll just a few more minutes. It's 7 o'clock on the dot here, 6 o'clock in Jamaica. So we'll give everybody a few more minutes to come in. And then we can get into the updates on Q3s that just passed, where we are now. Q4, we obviously have almost a month, basically 1 month already done in Q4 of this year. So looking forward to knocking that out. All right, yes, everybody's joining with no problems. Yeah, we chose to go to the registration option instead of just sending out the Zoom link so that we could better control who was now logging in and getting access to the quarterly updates. We don't have to give quarterly updates for the Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. vehicle that has shareholders now. We have to file annually with the SEC, but we want to go the extra mile and provide some additional updates. But we still want to keep some things, within the group of shareholders, and we have some potential investors that we've also invited as well. And I know I'm going to get some questions from, we have some potential investors in Jamaica that are probably going to join. So I'm very excited about this. But, thank you very much for making the time. I see my appearance are on, so special shout out to Dad and Mom. I saw them earlier today before I came back. So I see Joseph Paul, one of our first investors. I see Eileen. Hi, Eileen. Sorry,
Hi.
Renee. So, and of course, Matthew and Debbie. Sharon, I see you. Gordon Smith. Oh, Pastor, I see you up in the Bronx. Yeah, man. So I would say, and of course, Nile is joining from way up north. I hope it's not too cold yet. And Kyrie jumping in from San Jose. Welcome from Cali. All right, well, I'll say 1 more minute to let some more people come in. It is being recorded, as you guys know, so it will go to everybody. So for those who come late, we'll be able to catch them up simply by sending them the recording and they can watch it. So we don't have to wait too long to get everybody in. But this is a very special meeting in particular. So I want to get going. I don't want to wait too much longer. So, all right. Well, I'm going to put everybody on mute while we go through this, and then we can open up to some questions. The format I wanted to go in was starting with Q3, what we wanted to happen, our objectives and intended key results, what actually happened, and then where we are now in Q4, what are the objectives and key results going forward for this year, the rest of the year as we close out 2024. So first thing is, I'm David Mullins, Chairman and CEO of Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. I'm also Chairman of Blue Mahoe Holdings Inc., which is the main vehicle that controls Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. Blue Mahoe Capital is a vehicle that is going public. So we refer to it as an impact investment firm. And we also call it a special purpose vehicle. It was created specially to give retail investors access to the Caribbean. And as you know, back in May of this year, May 4th, we filed with SEC to do what's called a regulation crowdfunding offering, Reg CF. and that would allow us to raise up to 5 million US from retail investors in the US. So they don't have to be accredited. So as I've said before, accredited investors in the United States are defined as individuals who earn 220,000 US per year for the last 2 years and expect to earn that in the coming year. Filing single or 330,000 filing jointly. They've moved it from 200 to 220, from 300 to 330. Or they have a net worth of $1 million US, not including their principal residence. So they don't count your house, your primary residence, in their net worth. So those are accredited investors. Usually, only accredited investors are allowed to invest in private companies. So usually it's a private deal, right? They call it a private placement. They get an exempt distribution. So you file paperwork with SEC to say it's exempt. I'm doing a Regulation D offering, and I can only raise from accredited investors. If you go to Reg CF, you have to file with SEC, you have to file with FINRA, and you have to raise money via a regulated crowdfunding portal. So we had partnered with Silicon Prairie as our portal. They're out of California. And so everybody has to invest at $10 a share. We chose that price. We set the minimum of $500, and then they had to go on that platform and fill it out. They could wire money, they could do a credit card, or they could mail a check to us. And then Silicon Prairie tracks our shareholders in there. So it's important to explain. We filed on May 4th, and then 4 days later, May 8th, it was qualified. So remember, the SEC doesn't approve an offering, they qualify an offering. And what that means is that all the paperwork makes sense. We've done all the correct filings. We can raise in the 50 states, and we're allowed to generally solicit. What that means is we can advertise. We can run ads on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We can talk about it publicly. And it's rare. Usually you can't talk about a rate publicly. You can't generally solicit. So we are allowed to generally solicit from US persons. And it's important to define US persons. Social security number, tax identification number, a TIN, anybody can file for that. Or an EIN, an employee identification number, which means you set up a company and you get a tax ID. So those are what are called US persons. So we are not raising money in Jamaica, in Cayman, in Trinidad, Barbados, Canada. We have not filed with their securities regulators. This is a US only offering. Yeah, so we'll get into what we're going to do next, but that's where we are. So US persons. As you know, we had done what's called a testing the waters. So before we filed, we were able to test the waters, which means we could set up on the website, on the platform, and people could actually commit. They could make pledges. We couldn't take that money, but they could pledge to invest. And so we had gotten to roughly $247,500 worth of pledges on the side. Once we get the offering qualified, we could then start collecting cash. People actually now had to fund their pledges. So I want to bring up the speed on where we are with that, because the first priority was to break escrow. We had set escrow at 50,000 US dollars. So we needed to hit 50K for money to actually come to Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. and have it be able to put that capital to work. This capital, for the most part, was going to cover the costs of engaging our investment bank, paying the lawyers, paying the auditors, paying some of the team members so that we can scale, bring in the larger pool of money. And then we want to go off and start doing some key things: private credit, real estate, specifically affordable housing in the Caribbean, starting in Jamaica. We want to do some private equity, and we will launch our funds, which can then do the public equity side. This money we're raising in Reg CF cannot be used to buy public equities. So just to be clear, the money we're raising in Reg CF can be used for private credit, the real estate development, and can be used for also making sure that we focus on launching the asset management business. So if you read our offering statement, we talk about the asset management business and affordable housing. We really lead with affordable housing, asset management next. On the asset management, we talk about private credit. So we're lending money to people and then earning interest. And then we talk about launching the funds that can do impact investing via private credit, private equity, public equities. So that is what we were supposed to, where we went. Out of that 247,000, we did break escrow. So we broke escrow last quarter and we took in $54,000. So we went past the 50. We broke escrow later than we wanted. We broke escrow roughly 6 weeks later than we had originally planned. So one of the key lessons that I think all of us can take from this one is Jamaicans really move slow. There's no other way to put it, right? We had people commit, they pledge capital and on the side. And this is $500, $1,000, 2,500, $10,000. And then the time came for them to actually fund it. It runs until March of next year unless they shut it down early. And so we've only had 54,000 of that funded and come to Blue Mahoe. Another 17,000 is actually sitting in our account. That's called a for benefit of account. So we essentially have an escrow account. So when somebody fills out the form on the site, they go to islandfor.com, they click invest, right? Individual investors, and they click buy now to buy the shares. It takes you to the regulated platform. You register on there, username, password, email address, and then you set up your profile. You then attach a bank account to it using Plaid. So most of us know Plaid so that nobody sees your actual bank account information. And then it pledge. It recommends $2,500, but you can change that number. And it calculates what's the maximum you can do based on your income or your net worth. And if you've done any Reg CF investments for the last year during this calendar year. So you're typically limited to 10,000. Either $10,000 is your cap, or 10% of your net worth, or 10% of your annual income, whichever is higher. And that's how it works for Reg CF. So we can't take more than roughly $10,000, for argument's sake, from non-accredited investors in a Reg CF. So 247,000 committed, 54,000 has actually come into the bank account, and we have an investor account set up separately from our, and we have a general and administrative account separately. So investor capital came in. And we have another 17,000 sitting in our escrow account. The reason it's sitting there and has not come to us as yet is because we have some investors who have not clicked one more link to sign your subscription documents. We call those subdocs. So they need to click sign the document to now own the shares for us to get the cash. So we're staring at cash that we can't use. So 54,000 came, 17,000 sitting in this account now in escrow. But that means that we have another $214,000 that was pledged. That's just sitting out there. Nobody has actually funded it. They've committed it, but they haven't funded it. So we're dialing for dollars. We're reaching out to them and say, hey, what's happening? We've actually heard back from a few of them, and it's funny. Their answer is, well, it says it's not closing until March next year. So I have time. I keep trying to explain to people that actually you don't have time. We will shut it down early because we want to now focus on our listing plan. So that was the first thing. Break escrow. We have broken escrow. We have broken escrow, and so we're moving forward. So first objective was critical, and we've gotten that one done. The second objective was to engage an investment bank with a focus on doing a Regulation A Tier 2 offering. A Tier 2 offering allows us to raise a maximum of $75 million. We weren't looking to raise a 75. We really wanted to be at 5. 300 round lot shareholders, as I've told you guys before. So that's 100 shares each, $1,000 investment. And most importantly, that removes the cap of people being able to invest. There's no dollar amount anymore. As long as a check a box that says we will list on a stock exchange if and when allowed and qualified. So we had always intended to obviously list on NASDAQ. We have a ticker symbol that's been reserved for the last 3 years. So that is there. So we want to check that box, unlock everything, and it's called a mini IPO. So it's a Reg A mini IPO. So we met with 2 different investment banks, and I'm very happy to tell you guys, some of you have seen the announcement that came out last week, Thursday. We waited until now to announce. We needed to bring in some more capital to engage them while we had working capital. But we signed back in August. We signed on August 26th with Kingswood Capital Partners out of New York to be our investment bank to take us public. What we're not allowed to put out in the press release, but I can say it here because you're shareholders, is that this is not a best efforts basis. Typically, when you're raising money with an investment bank, there are 2 ways to raise the money. You pay them an engagement fee. Usually it's between $25,000 and $50,000 as an engagement fee. And they're actually going to use that to pay their legal counsel to work on the documents. And then they charge you $10,000 to $20,000 a month as a retainer. So that's a standard operating procedure for raising capital in the US. It doesn't matter how much or how little money. They're going to charge you a percentage of whatever they raise for you, usually between 5% and 8%. On the high side, 10% of whatever they bring in. So if they raise $1 million and they charge you 5%, well, you don't get $1 million in your hand. They're taking that 5%, right? That 50K from you. we negotiated to not have an ongoing retainer. Right? We wanted to just pay an engagement fee. We don't really need them to go out and raise their money. If it's on best efforts basis, they're going to take your money and try their best effort to raise money. Best effort, but it's not guaranteed. So your money could be gone. We're not interested in doing that. We needed someone who was going to make sure that they work with us and not string us out, right? If it take 10 months, then that's $100,000 gone, paid them for consulting. So we didn't want that. We wanted to work with a firm that wanted to list us as quickly as possible, which means if they're not getting paid per month, they're really getting a success fee. And that means I want to be successful in getting this done. The other way to raise money is what's called an underwritten offering. So this means that they're providing capital guaranteed to the business. And so when you come and do an underwritten offering, here's a dollar amount we're going to raise, we're underwriting that amount. And if they don't raise all of it from investors, they will make up the difference. So typically an IPO is underwritten. Facebook, for example, was an underwritten IPO. We're not doing an IPO, we're doing a listing, but we're ensuring that we wanted to make sure we don't have any issues. So Kingswood has agreed to do an underwritten offering for 10 million US dollars. So we had focused on 5. They've agreed to underwrite 10. So they're guaranteeing 10 million, whether from investors or from their pocket, but they're guaranteeing us 10 million and to list us on NASDAQ. So $10 million at $10 a share. So we're selling 1 million shares. We can still raise up to 75 million. So at this point in time, we're working closely with them to update our offering statement, right? We filed with SEC already. So we had filed an initial one for 5 million. We now need to update it and say, hey, here's one for 10 million. Just we'll do more with the money. And we need to also put in there, here's what we do with 20 million, our use of funds breakdown. It's called a use of funds statement. Here's what we will do with 50 million, and here's what we do with 75 million, because we can raise a maximum of 75 million. For those who might ask a question about dilution for shareholders, this was always designed with 25 million shares to be issued. So that's always what it was going to be. We haven't issued all of them, but we had already designed it around 25 million shares to be issued. So nobody will get diluted based on how we had structured this. The idea is that we would have at least 8 million shares out there to be able to raise $80 million. 5 million in our Reg CF and 75 million in the Reg A, and it would get us to 25 million shares. So I reverse engineered it to make sure that we're not suddenly issuing new shares to then dilute other people. So that's the plan. 25 million shares, and that's when we're going to make sure we list. That's roughly the number that we expect. If we don't raise all of it, we still will have those shares authorized but not issued. So in that case, you actually own a larger percentage than we had originally designed it for. So let's see where that goes. But feel free to ask a question related to that after. So that was the second and most important thing. We need an investment bank to actually handle the listing. And now we have a $10 million underwritten offering. So what that means is that we just need to close out the 300 round lot shareholders that have at least 100 unrestricted shares. We're at roughly 291 at this point in time. So we're not really worried about getting to the 300. We have the 3 market makers lined up thanks to NASDAQ. We have the investment bank in place. We will switch to our larger auditor when this quarter is done. And I'll explain where we're going. So that's where we're at. We have the offering memorandum. The new draft is done. We'll get it to Kingswood over the weekend, and we'll continue. We did our first all-hands call with their team and our team this past Monday. And so we're going to continue that. So we're really excited about getting that signed in Q3 as expected. However, we are not going to go public in 2024. So we met with them in the all-hands call. And they said something very simple to us. To give you a timeline, you need to understand from the day you file the paperwork is a minimum of 30 days for the SEC to review it. If they have any comments, they'll send comments back to your general counsel. We then have to make adjustments based on the comments. You'd have to change something. That's going to be at least another 15 days. If they have no comments, they just qualify it after 30 days. And Kingswood believes that we will get it qualified within the 30 days because we already had one qualified. So we're just updating. It's not something brand new. It's not something the SEC hasn't already seen. So it should be a fairly rubber stamp process. They've done 7 listings for the last 12 months. The smallest was 3.5 million. The largest was 50 million US. And they were the sole book runner. They were the only group raising money for those. So they feel very confident that they can do that listing very quickly. But they said something simple to me in the call. We can list you in time for Christmas this year. So they could list us before December 25th if we don't mind being the tree that falls in the forest and nobody hears it. And I don't think that's what we want. I 100% agree. We are not interested in listing in the middle of the holiday. Listing between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day is a waste of time. Nobody's going to write about it. Nobody's going to be there to buy a stock. We want to make sure endowment funds, pension funds, exchange traded funds, mutual funds are aware of it. We want to make sure that people in Canada, UK, Bahamas, Barbados, Jamaica, Cayman are aware of it to buy. So it does not make sense for us to list in time for Christmas. So we're looking at Q1 for the listing, and we actually want to get it done in January. So let's see where it goes. The key is that we have one more quarter to audit then. So that's an extra fee, but we will get to switch to our bigger auditors. We're going to use a US-based auditor that's an entire team in the US. It's called Cohn Resnick. We provide all this information to you. Obviously, so far we've used a smaller firm. This is Mercurius and Associates. They have a US office with an Indian back office. So that's how we did the initial audits. Now that the business is bringing in cash and about to scale, we're going to now switch to a full-on US-based 100% firm that is in the mid-tier. So they are in the BDO level, not the PwC, the Deloitte, KPMG. We don't need to spend that level of money. We're going to be down here with Cohn Resnick, and it's a group that we've known for more than 4 years. So we feel very confident about dealing with them. They are based in New York as well. So the investment bank is in New York, the law firm is in New York, the auditors are in New York. And this is a PCAOB audit. So this is the highest level of audit that has to be done for public companies. So thankfully, it's not $250,000, just to be clear, but it's still going to be in the 40,000 type range eventually. And then going forward, we'll see how much more complicated it gets. But auditors in place, we're finalizing the law firm that we work with on the listing side of things. Right? That's a securities law firm that needs to know what they're doing. But very excited. So objective number one, break escrow. We got that done. Objective number two, sign on with an investment bank to take us public. We got that done. We had a bonus. We had never designed this for an underwritten offering. We had expected to have to raise a $5 million. Turns out the investment bank really believes in what we're doing, and they're going to do $10 million into the business and guarantee that we get listed. So for those who are wondering, man, if this thing going to get listed, if it's going to work, will we be able to raise the 5 million or the 10 million? Are the ads going to work? Do we need to go and do all these events and fly around and sit and talk? No, we get to go to tell people right now, we actually don't need anybody. We're going to list anyway, and we're getting 10 million. We can start planning how to use a 10. What we want to do is go beyond the 10. There's no reason for us to stop at 10. We can deploy more capital. We can put together 75 million without any problem. We know what to do with this capital. Some of you are on this call. Right now you're on this call who would be part of us deploying some of that capital. This is in the agriculture and equipment space, in the Caribbean, in the real estate development space with affordable housing as well. So we feel very good about our ability to manage the capital allocation if we do get to 75 million. Worst case, Blue Mahoe Capital come Q1 2025 has 10 million minus the fees. So it roughly works out to about 9.25 million comes into the actual company in cash for us to then go and deploy. We are working on some deals that will bring some assets under the balance sheet that don't give us cash, but they give us ownership of something that can generate revenue. So the third objective that I had was to start transferring some assets onto the balance sheet of Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. So I'll talk about Blue Mahoe Holdings. We have Blue Mahoe Property Fund. We have Blue Mahoe Finance. We have Blue Mahoe Capital Partners. We have 4 other vehicles outside that are related. Holdings controls all of them. So just so you understand, Blue Mahoe Finance was the initial private credit vehicle that we had used. So that entity lent money to an investment firm in Bahamas. It lent money to a company in Jamaica that subsequently repaid that loan. It lent money to MAPEX, which is one of the largest exporters of heavy equipment and agricultural equipment into the Caribbean. And that's an ongoing loan. And then we lent money to Sprint Financial Services Limited, which is a microfinance company in Jamaica. And so those were 4 deals that were done, 1 paid off, 3 that are generating interest. And that's Blue Mahoe Finance, and it's separate. The goal was to always bring those assets over to Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. at some point before the end of the year and before listing. We want to have assets, but we don't want to be diluting everybody or issuing shares or paying out cash. We need to be able to just bring the assets over. So we've worked on that. So the first one was Sprint. Sprint is our largest position right now. We're on 19.5% of Sprint in Blue Mahoe Finance as of last quarter. So it converted the 245,000 US into equity. It was generating interest, 10% a year, was being paid from Sprint. Actually, it paid us a little more than that. And so we brought in cash from that on a quarterly basis. We had some essentially bond holders, some note holders that would earn interest from that. And we converted into an equity position in Sprint at a paper gain. So we converted at roughly a 1.27 million US dollar valuation after 3 months after Sprint had raised money at a 2 million US dollar valuation. So on paper, it's gone up, but we decided that we don't want to count the amount it goes up by. We want to focus on here's a dollar amount we actually paid for the shares, and then we effected a transfer at the end of this last quarter. So in late September, we transferred the actual shares. We have actual shares registered in Jamaica, the company's office, in the name of Blue Mahoe Finance LLC for Sprint. We effected a transfer to hand over those shares to Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. for $1. Because Blue Mahoe Holdings, which controls finance, which is me really, already has enough shares in Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. So I didn't want to issue $245,000 worth of shares essentially to myself to then transfer the entity over. The whole point is to move the entity over here. I don't need any more equity for myself. I have enough shares already. So some people have done it that way and taking more shares. I am not doing that. I have enough equity in the business already. It is in my interest to have my shareholders benefit from that. So as of today, going into this quarter, Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. owns a 19.5% of Sprint Financial Services Limited in Jamaica, and those shares are being changed over. The name is already being changed over at the company's office in Jamaica. We look forward to getting verification of that in the next few weeks. So that's number one. We have $245,000 of assets on the balance sheet from just Sprint, and we can show how we paid for that because we actually paid cash for that in a different entity. So really excited about that one. Again, we have no debt. So if we have zero debt and we're going after 5 billion assets, we have 245,000 now, plus 10 million to come in from the investment bank. So we now own it. We can say Blue Mahoe Capital owns the stake in Sprint. I do sit on the board. We have not decided yet where we're going with Sprint. We're still going through some board things. Let's see where it goes. But as of now, we own it. We could sell it and get a gain or get cash and put the cash to work somewhere else. We have options. So let us see where it goes. If they can pay a dividend, they'll pay a dividend to Blue Mahoe Capital. So either way, we have an asset. This entity didn't pay a ton of money for it. So very happy about that one. And it helps to make life a lot easier on our side. So that's one. We're creating, we wanted to create 3 things last quarter. Number one, we wanted to launch Blue Mahoe Private Credit. So we wanted to launch a private credit entity that would now take over from Blue Mahoe Finance. We chose to delay that and we launched it in this quarter. So we didn't complete the objective of launching the Blue Mahoe Private Credit entity. I didn't register a subsidiary vehicle. So that has not been registered as yet. We wanted to create Blue Mahoe Caribbean REIT. So we wanted to create the REIT entity that would be a US-based entity that can raise money and invest in real estate in the Caribbean. Whole assets in the Caribbean. So that entity was created, the bank account has been opened. We haven't gone to the market as yet, but it was set up last quarter. So the property fund in the US, the invest in the Caribbean, does exist. So that's number 2. We got that done. And then the third one that we wanted to create was Blue Mahoe Capital Appreciation. So we want to have a fund that owns public equities, 20 public equities in Jamaica, no more than 10 securities in the US. So that was always the plan. We create a fund, we manage that fund, and we earn fees off of it. Blue Mahoe Capital Partners Inc. owns equity in companies listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange and the junior market. The idea is that Blue Mahoe Capital Appreciation would take over those assets into the fund, start generating fees, and then the fund would be listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So we're listing a fund in Jamaica. Remember, the idea is we want to be Berkshire Hathaway, the parent company that owns Blackstone, an asset management business. So we want to launch 4 funds. Blue Mahoe Capital Appreciation LLC does exist. It participated in NCB's APO. We received those shares last quarter, so we own the shares in NCB. Plus, we have 19 other companies in Jamaica on the balance sheet of capital appreciation. Capital Appreciation is a US entity and a Jamaican company. And the Jamaican company, Blue Mahoe Capital Appreciation Limited, will actually be the parent company of the US one. The idea being that we need a Jamaican one. It's easier to list a Jamaican company than a US company. So the Jamaican company, registered in Jamaica, accounts with Jane Fund Managers and NTB Capital Markets. And we transfer the stocks from Capital Partners Inc. to Capital Appreciation. Capital Appreciation Limited owns Capital Appreciation LLC here in the US. And that entity will have an account with JP Morgan. So it has an account with JP Morgan that can then buy shares in the US market using the US based company. So we're not using a foreign entity to buy if we bought Berkshire, for example. The first US security that Capital Appreciation owns is Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. So our fund that we manage actually owns some shares in Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. So I know it might sound interesting, but there's a way for us to give some pension funds and some individual investors in Jamaica access to owning the parent company that's going to go public, as well as exposure to the portfolio that we have in Jamaica. So we do have some people in here who did convertible notes at the Blue Mahoe Holdings, and they have options. They can either they're in Jamaica, so they could either take the US one. There might be a US person with a social security number, and they have a US account. You might have an account at Charles Schwab or Robinhood. You can put your shares in there, and the owner of Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. stock directly. If you don't want to go through that headache, we can put you into the Blue Mahoe Capital Appreciation Limited company in Jamaica that will be listed in Jamaica. So we're going to list it by introduction, and that gives you liquidity in Jamaica instead. So you get to choose which one you want to do. Do you want to own just straight into the US one, which means you have to file US taxes, just even if filing taxes say you don't owe any tax, you have to file. Or you can own the Jamaican entity, which owns the US the one, plus some others. You own some Jamaican things as well, but you get all the US company stock in the Jamaican one. And then you only deal with the Jamaican side. So for anybody that has a question, we can talk offline. I know somebody's going to ask me, does that mean somebody in Jamaica who has not invested yet could come in through Capital Appreciation Limited to get exposure to the parent company in the US before the IPO? The answer is actually yes. We can't generally solicit. So I can't run and post that. I can't go on social media and say that. But we can have a one-on-one call. I can come to somebody's house and talk to them. We can do a Zoom call. So we can do a small private friends and family round into the Jamaican entity to take Jamaican dollars into that vehicle and then give people exposure to the US. So we're pretty excited to finally have that done. We engaged a lawyer the last quarter, paperwork was filed. We have appointed a board of directors to that entity. I'm the chairman of that board in Jamaica. So we accomplished an objective. Blue Mahoe Capital Appreciation does exist. So those are three things that we really wanted to get done. The fourth one wasn't for last quarter, Q3. I'll tell you, we wanted to lay the groundwork, but yeah, the last objective that we wanted to lay the groundwork for, but not launch yet, was our impact fund. So as I've said before, we want to have a true private equity fund. 10-year fund charges a 2% management fee and a 20% performance fee with a hurdle rate. We have to return better than 8% for the investors before we get any of the upside. That's usually how hedge funds and private equity funds and venture capital funds work. So we're doing the same thing. Kevin Burrows is our chief investment officer based in the Bahamas, former CIO for the Adidas family office, used to manage a $1.1 billion US portfolio between the UK and South Africa. So Kevin has been setting up that entity. It will be based in the Bahamas. So it's a Bahamas entity. There's 0% tax in the Bahamas. He's very familiar with the jurisdiction there, having been the president of the CFA Society of the Bahamas. So we'll have a Bahamas-based impact fund to invest into the Caribbean. We already had a US-based feeder fund. So we, as Blue Mahoe Capital, actually have an entity here in the US. And that Caribbean fund was already set up, registered with SEC, and we've kept it around for the last year. So you need a feeder. US investors go into our US entity. The money then goes to the master. You have a feeder. It's a master feeder structure is what they call it. I'm teaching you guys all this stuff. So the master fund is in the Bahamas, not Cayman. Most master funds are actually in Cayman. We've gone with the Bahamas and said it's cheaper, and we have somebody on the ground there. The master fund is in Bahamas. The feeder that we have is in the United States, going into there for US persons. Everybody else in the rest of the world goes directly into the Bahamas entity, and they don't have to worry about any tax problem. So we're pretty excited, and we're looking to launch that in Q4. So those were the things we wanted to get done in Q3. We feel very positive about that, and we have the bonus, $10 million underwritten offering, clear timeline to now go public, and that is double the money we were looking at from a minimum standpoint. So it's less pressure on us in terms of raising the big money. The pressure on us is raising the working capital to make sure we can cover expenses. The last thing I want to talk about on the Q3 side before we get into Q4 is that we do have some commitments. We have paperwork signed. We also have some verbal commitments for some capital to come in and a new board member to join. I don't want to share too much about that, but it is a seven-figure deal. It's above $1 million that we have now committed from at least 7 investors, and we're working very assiduously to close that capital to bring onto the balance sheet of Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. itself this quarter, and we would announce a new board member that would be, it's going to be very interesting when they announce that one. It's going to be a big deal. We're very excited to have someone of that stature in the Caribbean agree to join our board and provide some additional guidance. So yeah, the key thing for us is to ensure that we have a really solid board of directors. Right? The board doesn't run the company from the investment standpoint, but the board ensures that we're being accurate in the way we manage the money, accounting for the money, and we want to make sure we're being ethical in what we're doing as well with the money. So really excited about that. So those are where we are for Q3 and where we ended. Q4 is very interested to talk to you guys about, and I want to talk about where we're going now. We've already completed 1/3 of Q4. Originally, I would have wanted to list. I wanted to list before Thanksgiving, but we'd have had to have all the capital in place to engage the investment bank, the law firm, and the auditors, and still cover operating costs to then have filing time for October 15th to be able to list after November 15th. And we just didn't get it. We got commitments all through September, and people just move slow. It is the most frustrating thing in the world when somebody commits, signs a paperwork, and then drag their feet. But that is the world we live in right now. We're not sitting on a ton of cash that we can just pay the lawyer a $10,000 engagement fee or pay the auditors a $10,000 fee or $5,000 audit. We need to manage our cash flow. Cash, as you know, is the oxygen of a business. No cash, your business fail. Businesses don't fail because they're not profitable. They fail because they run out of cash. So it's important that we manage the cash very carefully. So my thing with everybody on the call, if you make a commitment to anybody to invest in their company, get it done quickly, preferably within 48 hours. They need that money to do the next thing. It's not that the thing is perfect. If they're in an early stage business, you make the commitment, write the check as quickly as possible, get it done and help the person. Don't drag it out for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. You are slowing down their process, which is costing them money, right? It costs us money every month, no matter what. So, but the key thing for you, if you're an entrepreneur, is that you don't stop at one yes. You have to keep getting as many yeses as possible and keep closing. Until all the money is in there, you don't count it. All of us in business know that. Until the money shows up in the bank account, you don't have it. So it's always a good reminder for us. So really excited about that in going into Q4. We have even more commitments. I have paperwork to send out right after this call. I drove up from Miami to Orlando today, and I got a phone call that one of our existing investors who did 30K back in August has another friend that wants to put in, and I need to send paperwork to them. We have decided that come tomorrow, October 31, that's the last day for friends and family. That's it. We have an underwritten offering for $10 a share. We don't need to sell anything at a discount after that. We just don't have to. So paperwork signed by 5 p.m. October 31. Great, you're locked in. Not signed, not locked in. That's just really where we're at now. We have to focus on what really going to move the needle for those who've already put their money where their mouth is. Otherwise, everybody is $10 a share. There's no availability on the friends and family side. And we have some consulting options available. I'll be honest, we're always looking for help in some key business areas, but that is really where we are. So tomorrow, cut off, that is it. Moving forward, $10 a share. They go to the platform, they buy the stock, we get all their information, the money then gets wired to us through that regulated platform. If they're doing a large dollar amount, then we can do it direct. You don't have to do it through the platform. You can mail a check or wire the funds to us and we confirm receipt. So I'm very excited. Now, one thing I've been trying to stress to people and remind them is that the first $5 million that we raise is actually insured into Blue Mahoe Capital Link, not any old thing. The money raised into Blue Mahoe Capital Link directly is insured. So that first $54,000 that came is actually insured. We have an insurance policy for the first $5 million. So it's a principal protected investment. And that has gotten a few people to say, oh, well, I'm willing to step in and take a little bit more risk. I was only going to do 1,000, but now I'll do 5,000, knowing that there is an insurance policy. If you want to understand the insurance policy, you can go to islandforward.com and it's in the FAQs. You can click the link and read about the insurance policies. Also on the page when you go to the Silicon Prairie site to invest in Blue Mahoe Capital. But the details are there. Yeah, probably what I do when I send out this recording, I'll just include a direct link to the policy information, so you can just click that and read more about the insurance policy in case you didn't even know that it was insured. You'd understand how it works. But we're excited to that. I've actually never met anybody that raised money early stage and had an insurance policy on that money to protect their early stage investors. But a lot of you are doing this for the first time. You've never invested in a pre-IPO company. You've never invested in a private company. We might as well go the extra mile and pay for the insurance. It's not super expensive. It's about 1% of whatever it is. So $50,000 for the $5 million raise. So we're pretty happy about that. But they had to analyze the business, to plan everything, and in us before they would insure it. So pretty excited. It speaks volumes that we could get insurance for this. So in terms of Q4, we have some key things we really want to get done. I have 2 more months to get revenue onto our balance sheet. So we have some consulting that's happening. We're excited about that. We have income that's going to come in from some of the loans that we've done. So remember, for example, MapX has a loan through Blue Mahoe Finance that's going to transfer over to the Blue Mahoe private credit vehicle. We'll generate some income from them. So that's good. We're not saying it's not $100,000, but it's money. We're generating revenue and bringing it into the balance sheet. So we're excited about that. And we will launch at least one joint venture for the real estate development. We have not announced as yet, but we've added one more development partner to what Blue Mahoe is doing. So you guys know we're doing 700 houses in Old Harbor. It's called Penn Village, 200 in phase one. I mean, we're looking at another group that has 1,400 houses between Portmore and St. Thomas. They're in the phase of still getting regulatory approval, but we've agreed to partner with them to finance that. And then we will announce probably in January. I don't think we're going to say it just yet. I can say it on the call. We have been approached to work on 50 acres in Bernard Lodge with a partner that we've known for many, many years, and they feel that Blue Mahoe Capital is the right partner for them. So we will jump in there with them. And what we do is instead of simply providing financing to them, we're going to create a joint venture company to build those houses. And then they have some other projects to go on, and we'll keep doing those projects with that entity. I know that a lot of you listen to me and I talk about Berkshire Hathaway, and we're following the recipe. We're not changing the recipe. Somebody might ask, is this a pivot or is this different? And the answer is no. Berkshire Hathaway owns Clayton Homes, 100% of Clayton Homes. Clayton Homes is the largest manufactured housing company in the United States. So they build trailer houses, trailer park houses, but we call them mobile homes, manufactured houses. So Clayton Homes is a 100% owned subsidiary of Berkshire. So Warren Buffett was always doing affordable houses. We may not like those, but that's what they are. So we're not doing anything different. They just so happens we don't own 100% of our Clayton Homes. We own 50% of it. So we partner with the person. We'll bring capital. We'll arrange the debt with an investment bank in Jamaica. We can use a US vehicle to get debt as well, fairly cheap. And then they're going to bring the expertise, and then we'll work with them on acquiring the land, which they already have on the contract, and then build these houses. They have significant experience building affordable houses already in Jamaica. This is somebody who went to high school with me, is very close to one of our board members on the Jamaican entity, and now he's on the board of the Blue Mahoe Holdings entity. And is somebody whose father lived down the road from my in-laws in Jamaica. So it's somebody we've grown up and known for a very long time, trust, stayed in touch, and really excited that they stepped in and actually provided capital. They wrote a check to Blue Mahoe Capital that allowed us to engage the investment bank. And they wrote that check within 2 days. So just to make you understand how serious they are, we like business people like that. They didn't take long to get it and say, we wrote the check, wire the money. sign a deal, and I received the MOU today. I actually got the countersigned MOU today. Supposed to go on that deal. The Bernard Lodge one is actually going to end up being a bigger announcement. And no longer because that is government actually owns that land. So former sugar factory of Jamaica, Sugar Corporation of Jamaica, SCJ for those who know. So that one is something that's very close to the current prime minister and what they've been trying to do out there. So I know they're going to make big noise about that one in particular. Another thing that's happening is that we actually met with the US ambassador to Jamaica. I've now seen him twice over the last 2 weeks. He's very excited about what we're doing. He's going to have us at a USAID event in Jamaica in early December and wants to make sure we do an official visit to the embassy, make an announcement about a US-based company run by Jamaicans, invested back in Jamaica and the Caribbean. So we have the blessings of the US Embassy in Jamaica to open doors for us within Washington. And we're excited about that opportunity. We need to take advantage of it right now. I can't wait. We have no idea what happens in this election. We can't wait till January next year. We need to strike while right now, while they open doors for us. But super excited about that. I can't think of any other US-based companies run by Caribbean people going back to Jamaica, for example, and have the ambassador for the US supporting them in this way. And then he has made it clear he would want to be there at the groundbreaking for one of the affordable housing projects because it is a big deal to finally have this cross-border investments in a way that they've never done. They've had USAID give money, and they've had some foreigners invest, but they've never had the diaspora come back and invest. And the US ambassador, Jamaican ambassador Nick Perry, is Jamaican, so he has a soft spot for what we do. So really excited about Q4 and what's lining up there. We will launch Impact Fund. We're pretty convinced that we're ready and it can start fundraising, and we'll do a soft launch. We don't need to raise all the money. Our target is 25 million of AUM, and you guys are going to get used to that acronym, assets under management. The more our AUM grows, is the more revenue the company is going to generate from the fees, which is better for our stock price because we have dividends and the stock price will keep going up with AUM separate from the houses that we're going to build and sell. So AUM is going to be the name of the game for us. Blue Mahoe Capital Appreciation may list before December 31 in Jamaica. We may actually do that. It can direct list in Jamaica. It's much cheaper, much simpler. We're not trying to raise a ton of money, but we want to at least get something out the gate and start establishing credibility and showing our track record of the shares that we own. So we're transferring some shares to it. It can get listed down there. It also would own pre-IPO shares of Blue Mahoe Capital Inc., which means when we list in January, then it can pop with that as well, and we can bring in additional capital. So we're really excited about capital appreciation. And we have Caribbean REIT, so the US-based property fund that's going to invest in the Caribbean. We want to launch that before the end of December as well. So we'll be able to take money into there to go and it can help us with affordable housing, and it can actually go and acquire some real estate in the Caribbean. We're looking at a property in the Bahamas right now, and we want to look at some more things in Jamaica to start. So we start with those two first. So that's where we are on Caribbean REIT. It will launch before the end of this year as well. So that's two funds definitely launching with capital to deploy. The third one that we want to launch, right? We don't call the Impact Fund as launching, we count it as starting, but not launch and deploy money. The third one that I would actually launch and deploy money is the US property fund. So we've had meetings with one of the large investment banks in Jamaica, and they are interested in having us launch it earlier instead of waiting until next year. They have some pension funds that are sitting on cash in Jamaican dollars. If we have a Jamaican entity, we can accept Jamaican dollars into the entity. We can then convert that into US dollars and then go into a deal here in the US. We have 3 live deals right now that our real estate team has approved that we can get into. The minimum is 50,000 US dollars to get into one of them. So we're thinking of pulling together some capital quickly, probably $500,000 US. And we can jump into 2 other deals. We could do 250K in one, 250K in another one. We want to do some things that are move the needle type numbers when you convert it into Jamaican dollars. But I will be in Jamaica in the next week and a half to finalize those relationships. Individuals will be able to get in as well. And so that's what the person who only wants real estate. That vehicle will list in Jamaica as well next year. We don't need to list it this year. We'll take our time and have it go public next year. We haven't decided timing, capital appreciation first. Blue Mahoe list next. and then property fund would list after that. So I don't think we want to go and do one in December, one in January, one in February. We might want to slow it down. But if the market is saying no, we want it, then we need to go to market, guys. That's important. But the key thing is the board need to be in place for those entities. We don't have a board yet for the property fund in Jamaica that would go up here. So we'll work on that next. I might talk to some of you on here who have real estate experience and are willing to serve on the board of that vehicle known that is going public in Jamaica. And it's a buy and hold strategy. It's going to hold real estate for 5, 7 years. It's not that we're trying to build real estate. There's no development risk. And we partner with people who've been doing it for 15, 20 years. I know Joseph Powell has put me in touch with some people as well. So I'm kind of putting it out there. We have some people that we might want to have on that board. So that is really where we are for Q4. We have some additional team members that we slowly onboarded. What we've done to reduce the cost, right? Our biggest burn rate would be people, other than legal, is that we've engaged people on a fractional basis. So we have a fractional chief innovation officer, right? We have a fractional chief investment officer. We're going to bring in the CFO full time, but for the most part right now, everybody is fractional. We only get in 10 hours a week from them, 5 hours, 20 hours a week. Most of them are not full time. I am full time. This is all I do. I don't do anything else. I only do Blue Mahoe stuff. And then my brother is fractional at this time as well. We'll try to get him full time by the end of the year, and he's excited about it. So come January 1, we expect that we have the capital and everybody's full time. No more fractional things, no more side hustles. Everybody's all in on this. And you can count on having a ton of eyes, probably 20 eyes on everything we're working on here. And you wouldn't have to just reach out to me to get updates. You can reach out to, we have Tanya already, but you can reach out to more people on the team. We have somebody for business development specifically. He's in Atlanta. We have somebody for business development in Jamaica. So you can talk with him. We have the chief innovation officer. We have a chief investment officer. We have a chief operating officer. And then we're looking to bring in somebody for investor relations who's going to focus not on retail investors. That's what Tanya is going to do. We're going to bring in somebody who's going to be focusing on the high net worth and accredited investors. And then we want somebody else that's going to focus on institutional investors. So these are the pension funds, the endowment funds, and so on. Those are all different skill sets and different Rolodexes. So we're taking our time. So when we bring those people on board and update their LinkedIn profile, for example, people are calling and saying, what's this Blue Mahoe Capital thing? I want to learn more about this Caribbean opportunity. So we're going to take our time and not rush and jump at the first person. That's a man, I love what you do, I want to get it. And let's actually go through our process. We ideally want people that come from Blackstone or BlackRock. To be honest, those are my two preferred places for them to come from. We look at other people, but those are the two. So if you know anybody that work at Blackstone or BlackRock who willing to leave and come and join this scrappy startup that's about to have a underwritten offer and enlist, tell them that they should be reaching out to us because we're going to put out some feelers and we're going to have some job applications come December. Ideally, start doing interviews and close in Q1. So that is really where we are at this point in time. I know that we have a bunch of questions. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to ask questions. If there's anything I felt that I forget or I need to clarify, I can go deep on that. But remember, this is our company, not just my thing. And I wanted to understand exactly what we're doing, where we are, and in the timeline to get to where we want to get to. But I think you guys should be able to sleep very soundly at night, knowing that we now have locked in legal paperwork done, engaged for in the investment bank with Kingswood for a $10 million underwritten offering to list on NASDAQ. So we have had a long journey to get to this point. You can see the smile on my face. It meant a lot to me to why that all hands deck meeting, put out the press release. The day we put out the press release last week, Thursday, we had 5 investors close that same day since the press release went out. That's how important that press release was. You had people on the fence, right? I don't know if this thing really going to go public. Can they pull it off? How much they're going to raise? Can they raise the money? Nobody has to ask that anymore. Now it's a matter of, hey, can you write a check into this business? That's what people chasing us down. And the answer is no. We've already spent 3 years doing due diligence on the companies that want to invest in, and we know that we're going to invest in MAPEX and support what they're doing with ensuring food security in the Caribbean and helping to increase mechanization of farming. We're going to do affordable housing. We're going to do something else in the outsourced services sector. in the Caribbean. So we know these things and we're pretty excited about that. The last one I will leave you with before we jump into real questions is I've been fairly quiet about this one. There's a company called Seed, SEED. Seed was focused on trying to essentially be like SoFi for those of you know, our new bank. They want to eventually be a neobank, but they got a microfinance license from the Bank of Jamaica. It was founded by Michael Leachin Jr., so Mike's son. Mike obviously is our key advisor. He had founded this company with two partners and they wanted the personal loans for people in Jamaica to start for the underbanked and unbanked. And they use artificial intelligence to actually score the people. So they don't use a credit report in Jamaica. You fill out some questions, the AI then scores you based on your answers and comparing you to a subset of data that they already have of borrowers in Jamaica. And then it will give you a loan, and the loan is actually done via partners like Alaska or Bill Pay. They have no physical locations. So they give you the loan, you go to the place, pick it up, you can then go and use the money, and then you repay the loan at that Paymaster or Bill Express or Alaska. And the goal is eventually have a MasterCard, so you get a stored value card, they mail the card to you, they can load money on the card, and then you can use it as needed. So that is what they wanted to do. I was appointed chairman of that company, and I was given equity in that business. We're having them create a holding company. That equity will be transferred to Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. I am not keeping it for myself. I do not have side projects. So my equity in seed is being transferred this quarter to Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. So you get the owner piece of that company. And I'm proud to say I spoke to Mike today. They launched last week, Wednesday. I helped them to raise some initial capital. They launched last week, Wednesday. They've given out their first two loans to date in Jamaica while they're in beta. So it's a beta, it's a private beta. They invite people in, testing the software, tweaking, making edits as needed. But they have officially launched in Jamaica last week, Wednesday, and I'm excited to work with them and going forward and grow the value of seed. Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. You shareholders got a piece of seed through my advice, right? I consulted with seed and I got equity for it, and I put that equity in here. So your money never had to go to it, but you don't own equity in a company that's trying to reduce the cost of loans in Jamaica, and then we'll expand across the region. And it's trying to make it easier for these unbanked and underbanked people to get access to capital, to cash in Jamaica, and then we'll expand beyond that. So I'm super excited about Seed. If anybody wants to know more about it, just message me offline and can always set up a presentation with Michael Leachin Jr. to come in and explain the vision behind it, meet the team, and where they're going. You never know, you might have some interest in that. Yeah, he is raising right now on a small side, and we're excited to be a part of that story. So that's what Blue Mahoe is for. Our job is to help change the Caribbean and give people access to capital, to scale, and impact lives in a positive way. And we get to be part of that story. So super excited about it. So I'm going to open up the questions because I see we have 34 people on this Zoom call. I love it. I see there's a comment similar to Upstart. I would rather you go with New Bank or SoFi. There is some connection to Upstart or even Prosper you could look at, but Prosper is your own. You lend the money directly, but I'll look on Upstart. But yes, there's definitely a similarity there. We want to go with it and go from there. In case you want to know, so actually there's this bank, a black-owned bank called Greenwood. One of the shareholders, one of the founding investors in Greenwood, had committed to invest and has invested in Seed. So I did the call with him. Greenwood is based out of Atlanta. This is Killer Mike and those guys. The gentleman is between Atlanta and Guyana. And so he was one of the first investors to commit to writing a decent check into Seed. And he's looking at a relationship between Greenwood and Seed. So I'm excited to be part of that story and bring Blue Mahoe Capital into that. And you guys have no risk, zero risk to your capital. If it works, great, we make some money off it. If it don't work, it didn't cost you any money. It just cost me a little time and a little reputation. But I'm not interested in hurting the reputation. So let's make sure it works. So questions, guys, before you have me keep talking. And I have a visual if you need to see some more of that stuff, but please feel free to all right, you have a question. All right, Akil, feel free to ask a question, sir.
Yes, first of all, David, respect for the presentation. It was a well-received presentation. I like some of the things that I'm hearing. I like a lot of things that I'm hearing actually. Um, One question I'd like to ask you that if you can answer at this time is the dividend policy going down the road. I know it's a bit early to talk about that, but when we invest into the company,
Yeah,
you
man.
know, we know we have capital appreciation by the stock price, but is there a dividend policy to come in place like maybe a year down the road, two
So I
years down
love
the road?
that. So it's not too early to ask that question. I'll be very honest. I've had people ask me that before they write a check. Yeah, so as much as Berkshire Hathaway is our model company, for those of you who know Warren Buffett, Berkshire does not pay a dividend. However, Blue Mahoe Capital will pay a dividend. I'll pay a dividend for two reasons, right? The first reason, very simply, is that if we don't pay a dividend, we are going to lose out on a number of the institutional investors. They literally only invest in companies that pay dividends. We are solving a problem by giving them access to a region that they currently do not have access to. So I want to have the whole universe to invest in this company, which means we have to pay a dividend. So that's number one. We pay the dividend. Number
Okay.
two, right, and then number two, and this boy, this is a bigger this is a bigger reason for me, you know. Remember, when the company goes public, my salary drops to $1 a year. I will not have a salary once we list. So if we list in January as expected, I get a little one-time payout and then I don't get a salary anymore. I only have three options to get cash to cover my living expenses. Number one, I can sell some stock, and you know I'm not selling anything. I'm holding on for dear life. I'm not selling. Number two, I could borrow against it. We need to be very careful about borrowing against an early stage company. It's an early stage, I can't afford to borrow too much. So number three is that the company should pay dividends. I am the single largest shareholder. If the company generates a profit and pays a dividend, all of us get paid, including me. So that means I need to run the business to be profitable and pay a dividend. So that means we're not going to run a business and go pay for a bunch of private jet flights and all these things. I'm not paying for all of that. I want to generate a profit so I can pay a dividend to all of you, which means I also get a dividend. We are in the same boat, rowing in the same direction. And if you feel pain, I going to feel more pain than anybody else. And it's because I think that the way the corporate world works right now is broken. If you as a CEO do a really good job, you get a bonus. If you do a poor job, then you get a smaller bonus. If you do a horrible job, you get fired and you get a golden parachute. That's just a bonus by another name. It's heads I win, tails you lose. I don't think that is fair. I should only get paid if I do well. That's how hedge funds work. I get paid for making the money. If I don't make your money, I shouldn't get paid, man. I might get a little basic thing, but I shouldn't be living it up off that. So we will pay a dividend. Do we know what the yield is going to be yet? No, I have an idea. I'm aiming for the 2.5% yield, to be honest, and then we can grow from there. We can start at a 5% yield. I think that would be crazy because then it can't go down. And the market will punish you for going down. Nobody complains when the dividend yield starts going up. So I'd rather start in the 2 to 2.5% range, and then we go from there. So we will pay a dividend, and we'll pay a dividend as soon as possible, right? I don't know if it's going to take a year. I want to pay a dividend by the end of next year, though. I'll be honest. I would love go public January, come December, we pay a dividend. Oh wow, this is great, right? Pay a dividend for the December quarter. That'd be amazing if we could do that in year one. I think it is doable based on the kind of business we're doing. We have no debt. We're bringing cash under the balance sheet and we're investing in things that are already generating cash. We have funds that will earn fees. We're not rushing to scale up our cost. We should be able to generate profit and then pay out something to the investors and establish a consistent dividend payout going forward. I think it's crucial for us to do that going forward. Love your Warren Buffett, but yeah, my people need to get paid a dividend. I hope that answers your question in detail.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, it did. And just to make a point, I mean, I see Paul has his hand up, so I won't take up your time. I think the idea of paying small dividends first for new companies is the best way to grow long term. So I'm in agreement with that as well. So I mean, I don't mind a small dividend in the first year, but then as long as we see a dividend growth, constant dividend growth from that, I'm happy. I think investors will be very happy with that once we see the trajectory.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So, all right, I've seen some private questions. I'm gonna have to ask, I'm gonna answer them publicly because I know some people have these exact same questions. But first of all, I did see Tara's asked me to post a new organizational structure. So I'll go into that video. I see I'm going to show that image because also I see that this is DT Ray has asked for the visual. So I'll pull up that and share the screen soon and show you so that we can have the visual of exactly what it looked like, where we're going. And then I can always send it out as well. So that's there. Eileen was asking, when will we go public? I missed some of the discussion. So as of now, we targeted for January 2025. We do not want to be the tree that fell in the forest and nobody hear it by going public by Christmas. We could go public by Christmas, but nobody not gonna be there to buy the shares. And so we've been advised to wait. So before I go into the screen share, the question, this one is, will we be receiving transfer documents to allow our shareholdings? So what is the timeline for that prior to the January launch? And I love that one. So our lawyers on that, this is, as you know, we have Arthur Baker as our external general counsel, Concord Advantage Legal. So Arthur is going to be handling that. So yes, you will be getting the offer to convert your shares. So we have a whole bunch of people who want to convert right now. So we have paper that's being put in place that says, hey, I want to convert my note, which is in holdings or wherever. We have people that have done different things. I want the shares in Blue Moon Capital Link. Okay, great. And then we can hand over the shares. The nice thing is that the shares have already been allocated. So Blue Mahoe Holdings is what controls Capital Partners, Capital Link. I know all the shares. So those shares were already issued to Holdings. So they're sitting there waiting for when you convert. So once you say yes, you convert, Holdings will transfer the shares to you. So Capital Link doesn't have to issue new shares. I wanted to be very careful about constantly issuing shares. So we issued them one time. They sit in a holding company, and we had convertible notes in the parent company. Everybody in the parent company wants their shares. They'll get paperwork to say, I now agree to convert my note into shares at X price. We had a price. We had a friends and family round. So they get to convert. They get a nice win. And then the most important thing, which a lot of people don't ask this question, but they don't understand. Typically, when you invest in a company pre-IPO, your shares are locked up for 180 days. So when Facebook went public, if you had invested in Facebook before it went public, you were stuck for 180 days and you watched that share price collapse. But 180 days, you couldn't do anything with Facebook. And then you're hoping, boy, it better bounce back by the time I can sell. The nice thing about the way we're going public is that there is no lockup for you guys. All of us that have more than $2 million worth of stock, we are actually locked up. I am especially locked up. I have the most. So I can't sell anything because if we sell too much, we cause the price to tank. Though the whole point is that we don't want to tank the stock by dumping too much onto the market. So your shares, your $500,000 worth of shares, your $50,000, your $100,000 worth of shares, those are not locked up. They're not restricted. They're what we call free floating shares. So you get it in your hand, buy the paperwork, it then shows up in your account when you go to the share transfer agent. It'll send us a piece of paperwork. My name is David Mullings. This is my account at JP Morgan Chase for my investment account, right? Not the bank account, or this is my account at Charles Schwab or Vanguard. And the shares show up in there. They'll put your 100 shares, your 2,000 shares, it shows up in your account. And then you can sell anytime. You could sell day one if you want. Right? I wouldn't suggest selling all of them on day one. I think you should take some chips off the table, but you know, it could go up because now the rest of the world could buy. But you would be able to sell and you don't need to come to me. You don't even need to tell me. I'd rather you tell me, look, I might buy them. I'll just be very honest. But you don't have a lockup period. All of us that have more than $2 million of stock will be locked up. Though it's required by the investment bank. There's no way they're going to put $10 million on our balance sheet and then have us sell $10 million worth of stock on day one and cash out. It just can't happen. It's not something that is looked upon as good business. It's not smart for us. I appreciate that we have a lockup period. So that's where we are. So let me put up this. Oh, well, Paul asking a question, then I'll put up the video. Paul, please, Paul Peart, feel free to ask a question. I'll ask you to unmute while I get ready to do this screen share.
Yes, good evening, everyone. David, you mentioned that other of the companies that that are in Blue Capital Holding are going to be brought into
Yes.
Blue Mahoe Capital.
Yes.
Does that mean owning Blue Mahoe Capital Shares is effectively owning shares in those other companies also?
Yes, that is the idea. So if you think a lot of the rings, one ring to rule them all, Berkshire is one company to rule them all. I want that everything I've worked on for the last 6 years comes into this one company and all my shareholders benefit from that. Even if you didn't put money directly into that one, you should benefit from it. That's what I look at. I don't want to show up in the newspaper and have somebody ask me, David, we making money off that one? What's the connection to it? The answer is, yeah, Blue Mahoe Capital own it, not me. And we're not going to pay no bag of money to transfer it, right? It's already there. I'm the majority owner. I can move it over and not take more stock. I already own enough. Let's transfer them here, consolidate everything to one company. So yes, you will own everything I own. That's literally what's going to happen.
Understood.
Yeah, man. It make my life a whole lot easier as well. We just deal with the parent company. It's much simpler. So let me share this screen now, and then once you see this, you guys can always ask questions related to it. So I'm going to go full screen and look at this slide. play slideshow, right? Yes. Now so you guys can see Blue Wall Capital unlocking Caribbean diaspora capital, investing in the Caribbean today, correct? Just making sure somebody just tell me yes, you see it. Anybody? Just somebody say yes, you can see. Give me a thumbs up, somebody. Paul,
We can.
Yes,
all
yes.
right, good. All right, so of course, this is standard. We have to put this in there is for information purposes only and usual legal stuff. So this is what we present to people. 3 things should excite you about investing in a region or a country. Number 1, the perception should be different from reality. So people think the Caribbean is small. In reality, billions of dollars being made. Number 2, inefficiencies must be present. Caribbean is clearly inefficient, but they're willing to improve efficiency. And then lastly, there should be a lack of equity capital flowing in to the region. There's a lot of debt flowing into the Caribbean, not a lot of equity. When you bring equity capital to the table, is hugged and loved and treated special. So that's why bringing equity capital down there is so special, right? That's the first capital that can get lost, but they treat it special because they don't want to lose their money. Why invest in the Caribbean now? We've been through this. They're developing very quickly. A lot of money being spent on infrastructure, roads, ports, energy. It's domestic driven. There's a lot of local investor capital, especially in Jamaica with the capital markets down there. There's a massive export opportunity in the region. I don't have to tell you. Come out of Panama Canal, they close their eyes, they run aground in Jamaica, in Puerto Kingston. You have Bahamas with their port. We have significant opportunities. It's capital friendly. It's easy to get our money in and out. And people ask me up to today, someone asked me, why not Trinidad? I said, because I can't get no money out of Trinidad. I can't get US dollars out of Trinidad. So Jamaica, Guyana, Barbados, Bahamas. We start with those. We have no problem getting US dollars out. What about getting it in? I need to get it out. Otherwise, we can't pay dividends. There's a democratization of wealth that is happening. All these government entities are divesting things. And we have family-owned businesses that are going public and allowing us to buy into them finally. This is what happened in India 20 years ago. So just for clarity, 3.3 billion US dollars a year are sent back to Jamaica in remittances. It's a population of 2.75, 2.8 million people. Majority of that is coming from the US, 67% from the US. And these people can't really invest down there easily. It's surprising though, Guyana has less than 800,000 people, and they're getting $4 billion a year in remittances. So that's between the 2 countries, and this is what 3.5 million people is $7.3 billion being sent back down there. And there's over 3 million Caribbean Americans, so massive population for us to target. And of course, they want to invest. They don't trust the government. The government has been poor at managing companies. They don't know who to trust when they want to invest down there. We've had problems, all in cash plus, all these things. Is insane. I'm going through this right now, opening an investment account again. Even though we already have one. It's been painful for me to open an account. I can't believe it's so painful. But yeah, and then of course, inefficiency. We have this island time soon come mentality. And then the majority of people are just not accredited investors. We can't handle that. So we are the solution. We want private sector led vehicle. Blue Mahoe is private, as in a private company. And then of course, it's run by someone from the diaspora who goes back to the region more often. We partner with the right financial institutions. So, of course, in Jamaica, we have NCB and we have Jane Fund Managers, we have Cygnus Credit Investments. It's a US-based company, so it's a Delaware-based C Corp. Right? Our office is in Florida, but it's a Delaware company. Apple is a Delaware company with a California office. Microsoft is a Delaware company with a Redmond, Washington office. So Delaware is normal. And then we're open to retail investors. We wanted to be able to get people who could do 100 to 100, not just 100,000. We started at 500, but you get the idea. We need people that get the small checks, not just the big money check. It can be a hedge fund, a private equity fund, or a venture capital fund, because those are only accredited investors. We looked at the mutual fund option or the ETF. We can't do that. Nobody can do that. So holding company, that's what we do. Berkshire Hathaway. We want to build a Berkshire Hathaway, initially focus on Jamaica and expanding out to the Caribbean, which means a holding firm that can invest across multiple asset classes and own businesses in whole or in part. November 2023, Mike said to me, we should own Blackstone. What if Berkshire had owned Blackstone? And I said, wow, that's great. Blackstone, before they sold their stake in BlackRock. So Blackstone is private equity and real estate. BlackRock is publicly traded funds, ETFs and mutual funds. So that tells you exactly what the business is that we're building. These are the role models. If you haven't studied them, Google them, please. Please understand what these are and how they make money. Because we're doing the exact same thing. We're just running the playbook in the Caribbean. So asset management is great from an operational standpoint. It's very scalable. And the team that they need to run 10 million is the same team for roughly 250 million. So our expenses don't scale as much with the team as AUM grows. So a lot of cash that can flow down to the bottom line is not sitting on our balance sheet when we manage the fund. We have no receivables. You give us some money up front, then we go and invest it. It's great. It's like insurance, right? You pay Geico and Progressive up front, and they don't wait to collect from you. So high return on equity, and once you cover your fixed costs, the rest of it flows to the bottom line, which means we can then pay a dividend to all of us. That is why owning asset management businesses are so good. So we're a holding company, Delaware C Corp. We create an asset management subsidiary. We want to focus on owning a few good companies. Some of them we're going to create as joint ventures. Our favorite holding period is forever. I had somebody ask me last week, what's my exit plan for one of the companies I want to buy? I said, how long? And I asked him, I was like, how long has Warren Buffett owned Coca-Cola? The person said, man, I think it's more than 30 years. I said, exactly. Exactly. Why you would sell a good company? Unless it's permanently damaged, we don't need to sell it. Let it keep paying us dividends, let the value of it keep going up. So our favorite holding period is forever. We will look at the company. If something changed, the management changed, something bad happened, is it permanent or is it temporary? And of course, on here we said we wanted to list on NASDAQ in 2024. Well, looked like we're going to have to do January 2025 because I'm not taking Christmas. And then these are the groups we obviously work with: Jane Fund Managers, NTB Capital Markets, NASDAQ, Cygnus Credit Investments, and the private credit in the Caribbean is the largest private credit company. We have Sprint, we own 19.5% of that. And Jane Bank, we work closely with for some deals. Cygnus Real Estate Finance has brought some deals for us to look at on the real estate side. Before we do any real estate deal down there, we ask them about those developers as well. So here's a visual that you want. We're going to start going through it. Testing the waters first, then we did the Reg CF. Now we want to go under the Reg A, then we can do the listing. So that is what the timeline was supposed to be like. This is who we're targeting. I'm targeting them right now. Caribbean Americans. After we list, this is who we're going to target. Notice how it changes now. Pension funds, mutual funds, and exchange traded funds, high net worth individuals, and then local Caribbean. We can broaden who can actually buy the stock after we list, and that's why it's so important to list. Now this is going to be the visual that all of you really want. What does it look like? Blue Mahoe Capital at the top is your Berkshire Hathaway. That's Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. that you own shares in. So let's start with that. The one ring to rule them all. We're going to create Blue Mahoe Real Estate Partners. That is the equivalent of Clayton Homes under Berkshire. This one does housing solutions across the Caribbean, affordable housing. So we have Tan Peralta, for example, with Penn Village. That vehicle, Blue Mahoe Real Estate Partners, is what actually helps to finance that and build the houses on Harbor, Bernard Lodge, Portmore, elsewhere. We will then have Blue Mahoe Investment Management. This is now our asset management company that's going to launch multiple funds. So that's the second piece of the business. The third one is Blue Mahoe Private Credit. This is the one that's going to replace Blue Mahoe Finance, which is not actually connected here. and is lending money to companies like Amapex that we can partner with, who will allow farmers in the Caribbean to finally get loans to buy tractors, because they can't go to the bank to get the loan to buy the tractor. And so Amapex is going to be a very, very important partner for us, which helps with food security and mechanizing farming. So Blue Mahoe Private Credit is going to do that deal and more deals like that. We created a holding entity that's going to sit down in the Bahamas, actually, and we own shares of actual companies that are not in a fund. So if we decide to buy a piece of a company, we need to sit somewhere. I wanted to sit in one holding company in the Caribbean. So Blue Mahoe Caribbean Holdings is where equity sits. So for example, some of you know that we own 1.7 million shares of K-Lee Group Limited. So K-Lee is what has this in both tracks and records. It has BESA. Those shares will sit inside Caribbean Holdings, which is a 100% owned subsidiary of Blue Mahoe Capital. So they're on our balance sheet, but they're on our balance sheet through this holding company. We've been advised to do it this way rather than just have it sit on the American company's balance sheet. Remember, 0% tax in Bahamas, and it costs us $3,000 to set it up. So it's a very simple and straightforward thing for us to do, but it's an extra layer of protection, and it's a CARICOM country. So we own shares in CARICOM businesses by CARICOM holding companies. So we have special protection with CARICOM across because of the treaty versus a US company owning it direct. So that's why we're doing that, just based on legal advice. And then, of course, I can barely say this. The last piece should be our Blue Mahoe Charitable Foundation. We want to make sure that we're doing philanthropy, we're giving back. Some of our shareholders have said that once a list, they would like to actually contribute to a charity that we have, and then we can then support other charities. So we won't pick individual projects. You could bring projects to us, or your school, or your post office, or your church in Jamaica, or wherever you want to support. Let's look at doing that. But all of us, once we go public next year, it creates a taxable event. So by the end of December 31, 2025, you're going to have to pay taxes the following year, 2026, on the gain on your shares. Well, you can sell some of the shares or borrow against it and then donate that money to the charity and get a tax deduction. And so that vehicle is being created to allow some of us to donate into Blue Mahoe Charitable Foundation, which then can find other existing charities and go and support what they're doing in Jamaica, Bahamas, Barbados, Guyana. So really excited. Giving back is important for what we're doing. Of course, this is the last one you need to see. Blue Mahoe Investment Management now is the single most important subsidiary. Right? I would say real estate partners is the second most important one. Private credit is third. Investment management is the most important. This is our Blackstone plus BlackRock. 4 funds to launch. Number one, the Caribbean REIT, which exists. We haven't done any deals yet. Is a property fund in the US to allow investors in America to own real estate in the Caribbean that generates quarterly income. So you can own property in the Caribbean through a pooled vehicle. And so we're charging a 1% management fee and a 10% performance fee. So, and we can raise up to $75 million per 12 months. So we're pretty excited to get that one going. The second one is a US property fund. This is now based in Jamaica that invests here in the US. We already have the US arm. We have a Blue Mahoe property fund right now, thanks to John Peralta, who worked with us. And it actually has its first exit in November. We had invested $100,000 in a deal that is now worth $150,000, and they're selling the property, and we get that cash back. And we can repay all the investors. Everybody gets a nice win. We get a small fee. So the way it works, for those who might want to understand it, the Jamaican entity, Blue Mahoe Property Fund, raises money in Jamaica. It has to lend the money to Property Fund LLC in the US, because then we paid a lot of money to get this advice. You don't want to have tax withholding. If you invest directly into the US as a foreign entity or a foreign person, there's a withholding tax that is dependent based on the double taxation treaty. So for example, if there's no double taxation treaty, it's 30% withholding. So if you're supposed to get back $100,000, you only get 70, and the IRS hold on to 30. You then have to file paperwork with the IRS to say, I owe no taxes in the US. Give them a $30,000. And then the IRS will take a few weeks to send you the money. That's if you do it as a direct investment. If you do it through this tax blocker structure, you get back your $100,000 and you don't file with IRS. It's simple. So that is the way we're doing it. US Property Fund has a Jamaican entity that goes public, raises from pension funds and goes public, invests through a US entity to get access to US real estate that's cash flowing. So imagine that you get to invest in Jamaican dollars, Bayesian dollars, TT dollars to then earn US dollar dividends from US real estate. So your local currency gives you access to US real estate. So we're super excited about that. Third one is capital appreciation. This one I'm personally excited about. It's based on Left Brain Capital Appreciation Fund, the hedge fund I used to work at. And this is, so it's 1 and 20. So it'll be the lowest fees in Jamaica for an actively managed fund. Most people in Jamaica are charging 2 and 25. We're going at 1 and 20. So this is capital appreciation, close end, long bass, actively managed. 20 securities listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, 10 listed in the US. And that's open to locals coming up here. That's not for us to invest in. It's for locals in the Caribbean to invest and get exposure, mainly to up here and some of the Jamaican ones. And then lastly is the impact fund, which Kevin will run out of the Bahamas. And this is a true private equity fund, 10-year term in terms of the life, and we're investing in private businesses that we think can scale over time. So this is a visual breakdown that gives you a very clear idea what exactly we're doing, how we structure it, how it works. And then, of course, these are the NASDAQ listing requirements that I try to remind everybody about what we had to do to get to this point. So bid price $8, we had 10, we're good. 5 million in stockholders' equity, we have no debt, and we're getting 10 million. So we have 10 million in stockholders' equity, minimum. $30 million is the value of unrestricted held shares, publicly held shares. Well, we're going to have at least $80 million worth of shares unrestricted. So you guys will be out there and have more than enough shares. Operating history of 2 years, we don't have to worry. We aged the company, so it's 2.5 years old, problem solved. And then, of course, 1 million unrestricted publicly held shares. That's $10 million worth of stock. So we already have that just from the underwritten offering. And we'll have the 300 round nut shareholders. We're at 291 now. We should close out 300 by the end of next week. So that is exactly visually now what it looks like. I'll make sure to send a copy of this as well when we send out the recording. That way you don't have to worry about, oh, let me go back and look at the recording and scroll down. This is an hour later. So I'll attach it as a PDF so you can have the visual. Here's the investment management company and the funds. Here's a breakdown of the actual company and the subsidiaries. And then you can judge. Come January when the investor call, you say you're going to launch this one, this one, this one. Then launch, it'll work, or you change your mind. We need to be constantly graded and measured. And we need to do what we say we're going to do. And if we don't do it, we need to have good reasons to tell you guys why your company is not going ahead with this original plan. What changed? So, questions. I'm looking at the chat. I see 4 things pop up. Follow-up question. Will we be able to, instead of selling shares, be able to collatize those shares, or I guess, oh, I like this, collateralize it, for a loan? I love this. I love this question. Great question. So the question is this: when you own shares in a publicly traded company, it's harder in private. When you own shares in a public company, you can get what's called a margin loan. You can borrow against the shares. That's what Elon Musk did. Borrowed against his Tesla shares to buy Twitter, for example, and rename it X. So most wealthy people who own shares borrow against the shares rather than selling them. That way the value of the shares could keep going up. The interest that you pay on that loan is actually tax deductible. It's kind of wild. Typically, you can't borrow more than 50% of the shareholding. So the answer is yes. You don't have to sell your shares. You will be able to get a margin loan from your broker. So if you have it custodied with JP Morgan, for example, or Charles Schwab, you would apply to them for a margin loan and they would lend you against it. I would recommend that you don't borrow more than 30% against the value of the shares. So for argument's sake, the shares is $10 a share and you have $100,000 worth of shares. Just say that. Don't borrow more than $30,000. That way the share price would have to fall to $6 a share for you to then have what's called a margin call, which means you need to put up collateral and need to give them some more cash, or they would sell some of the shares to meet your margin call. So be very careful about borrowing margin, but yes, you'll be able to borrow against the shares, no problem, especially because they are unrestricted as well. So simple answer, yes, you can borrow against the shares instead of selling them, for those of you who want to do that. I appreciate that one. I've seen that question here. Big up, David. Love the presentation and how you set things up. Got to run. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing you more. All right. I appreciate that. DT Ray said the visual is helpful. Yeah, man, the visual makes a huge difference. We are visual animals, so I'll make sure I attach that. You'd like to understand the jurisdiction for performance fees. How is performance being defined? So I love that. So our performance is simple, 8%. We need to generate, we have our hurdle rate. Typically, performance is our hurdle rate. So there's a quarter, and we're going to measure our performance for that quarter. So have we performed better than an 8% return on your money, annualized? And then we keep 20%. If it's a 1 on 20, 1% management fee, 20% performance fee. There's a hurdle rate of 8. Most companies who do funds have a hurdle rate of between 7 and 8%. So that's just standard. So it means that the first 8% on your money goes to you, and you keep all of that. Above the 8, 20 goes to the investment manager, 80 goes to you. So the manager only gets the real money, right? The 1%, 2% keeps the lights on. The real money is in performing. Nobody should get paid to get you 8% or less. That's too easy. If somebody's charging you a fee right now to get you 5%, you need to fire them and take back your money. 8% is your hurdle, especially with inflation. 8%. Above 8%, none of them can share in that. So that is how we're going to measure performance. In the real estate side, for example, we're getting income from the real estate, from the property. Is it more than 8%? Okay, if it's 12%, the first 8, that's yours. Only a fee will be charged on the 4%. 20% of the 4% would go to us. So that's how we measure it. 8% annualized return first to the investors in the fund, and then above that. And there's no waterfall. It can get really complicated. People, some of them will say, oh, between 8% and 15% is 80-20. After 15% is 70-30. We don't have time to go through that, guys. Just 8. Just get a guaranteed 8. Above 8, we earn our keep. We have to earn our keep. So that's what we mean by the performance fee and how it's generated. And that's standard for hedge funds, private equity funds, and VCs. So we're not trying to do anything different. We're just using based on our experience and what we're going to do. So more questions, please, while we're on here. I'm not seeing any more things pop up. Feel free again, guys. You have access. And some of you can call me private anyway, so fine. I know you don't want to ask a question on the recording. If you don't want to, you could message me privately and I'll ask a question, and that way nobody knows you ask it if you want to ask that. Let me just put that out there for those of you. But otherwise, I'm fairly flexible the rest of this week. Tomorrow, Friday, I know it's obviously I'll do trick or treat in the evening, but I'm fairly flexible and open if you need to call me one-on-one, or you can call Tanya. I would say either Tanya or myself, you can call directly if you have some one-on-one questions or something specific pertaining to you and your investment, or you might have somebody you really want us to talk to, especially in light of us closing out friends and family tomorrow. But I will make sure that we add this. I do want to give one apology. I had wanted to include our financials from this quarter to show here's the money that came in, here's how we spent it. We haven't actually gotten the accounting firm to sign off on this. So I didn't want to send unaudited statements, knowing that we're going to have them reviewed anyway. I'd rather send in the reviewed statements. It's not like it's a lot of stuff, right? The first money came in and we paid the investment bank, we deployed it in some stuff. So it's not $1 million, right? It's not $500,000, like less than 100K came through. But I do want to get that out to you. And then now going forward, we have a system in place. We've brought in a fractional CFO, and so they're going to actually be closing out our books every month. So we have a system now starting next week that tracks our books and closes them every month. So within 3 days of our quarter closing, they can actually close our books for the quarter, hand over the paperwork to the auditors. The auditors then audit, but we would at least have unaudited financials within 3 days of the close of our quarter going forward. And the way we've done that is, thankfully, the fractional CFO is an hourly cost, so we're not stuck like, oh, we have to pay $5,000 a month or not. We have an hourly cost, we set a budget, and they are putting the systems and processes in place. So we're excited to finally have that and get that going. Shireen just messaged. This one says, how much longer do you have to purchase additional shares before going public? I like that. You have until we file with SEC to buy more shares. That's really the answer. So we end up shutting down the Reg CF probably by Christmas. So we'll shut down that, hey guys, last week, last call, and shut that one down. And then until we file, you could still jump in privately, We would expect my birthday is January 12th. Let me just be very clear. So I expect to file before that. I want to file before that. Really and truly, we have a 30-day clock ticking, but an investment bank will let us know where it goes. There is a way for us to file and not have to wait 30 days. So we really want to push to get this thing done in January. So I would say by January 1 is when you have to buy. At the latest, you would have to buy shares. After that, we would have to be then in what's called a quiet period, and we couldn't sell any shares once the paperwork is filed with SEC, because that paperwork is going to say, hey, we're doing at least 1 million shares at $10 a share, and it's an underwritten offer, and it's not a best efforts basis. Here's the investment bank. Here's a ticker symbol that we're listed under, and NASDAQ has qualified us to list. So we would love to be able to announce our ticker symbol at that point in time. Some of you may have guessed it by now, but I can't wait. I can't tell you on here. So you will not get me in a recording saying what the ticker symbol is. January 1, I would say, is your last date to buy any additional shares in there. And as I've said, we are looking for some help with the consulting side of things. There's a bit of heavy lifting that needs to happen over the next few weeks. So there are opportunities to earn some shares by bringing some expertise. Some of you have expertise in marketing, in finance, in modeling, in accounting, and you never know. So reach out if you think you have some skills that might be able to help Blue Mahoe Capital and your business go public. Don't be shy. I think more people should look at how they can earn some shares rather than just buy shares. All right, so still 34 of us. That's great. Anybody else? Lyle, how can we as investors share our stories to help others invest? That's an interesting one. I would say this: if you have some people interested in investing, right, tell them, hey, I went on my last quarterly meeting, they signed a deal, and I go in public now, If you want, we can set up a Zoom call and then tell us. And Tanya and I would coordinate with you to go and do a Zoom call. We have Pastor Paul Payton here, and they have set up a call with his own small group. And Tanya and I made the time to do that call with them. We got a lot of questions, great feedback. So we are willing to do that. It's easier for us to do webinars and Zoom calls than me flying to New York and rent a place and do an event. Right now, when we looked at the cost of doing the roadshow, it's roughly $8,000 per venue for the kind of venue you want to do at the cater and have it done properly that can host 200, 300 people. If we're doing 10 events, that's $80,000. I would rather not run off and do that right now, especially now that we have 10 million guaranteed underwritten. Let's save the $80,000 and we can put that money into an investment instead, guys. We can lend it to Mapex and they can put that to work really quickly and earn double digits for us. That's where I am. I want to minimize our expenses now that we've locked in $10 million. We don't have to do the exact same kind of roadshow. If you want us to come and talk to your church or your church group, we'll come. You want us to talk to your Rotary Club, we can come. You have a steel pan crew, we'll come link them too. I would say the best thing is if you're going to run a boat, please call. I will show up. I will happily come show up and eat some jerk chicken and Esco beach fish and jerk pork. Robert will want oxtail. Just be transparent about that. But yeah, that's how we can do it. Just tell them I got in. I wasn't. I held my time, and guess what? We got great news. And then here's the article. The article that's linked in there in this email that went to you to register for it. It says we've engaged Kingswood. It's on Yahoo Finance right now, and it has the quote from Leach and the quote from me and the quote from the investment bank. So I think you should share that with people and say, yeah, man, them just to them quarterly meeting, you should read this. And then tell them it's $500 minimum. That tends to get people to want to ask some more. Now I think we've crossed that threshold of, I don't know if it's going to happen. Now it's like, oh, the thing will work. Don't leave me out. The last thing you want to have happen is when Christmas comes, you're going to have some friends say, oh, you never tell me about this thing, man. You really was in that and you never tell me. It's better you tell them and they turn it down than Christmas come and next year come and they say, geez, you really never tell me about this. Right? That will be my play. And I'll be honest, for those of you, if you want, you could buy some shares and give it to your grandchildren or your nieces and nephews for Christmas. It's like you own a piece of Jamaica. Right? Just buy $500 worth of shares and give them. I think that's cool. If you want, we could even do a special card. I can get David to design it if you really want to do something like that. So consider that some of you on here have children, your shares are in your name. If you want to just pull out some of the shares and put it in their name, you can. It actually, kids don't really pay tax. So if you want, we can do that before we go public. So it might be in your name right now, and we're going to convert you. You could say, no, take 100 of my shares and put it in this doctor name or this son name. That actually helps us counting towards the 300. As long as at least 100 shares, they would count towards the 300. So don't, if you have 1,000 shares and you want to take 100 and put in one of your kids' names, nothing is wrong with that. Some people might even say, I'd put something in LLC, put one in a trust, but do consider carving someone directly in the child's name if the child is below the age of 18. I would say, think about that. Maybe you want to get some financial advice on that, but from what I understand, it's very good from a tax standpoint. It's not in your name. You don't have to worry about transferring to them later and this step up in basis and all these other things. So, yeah, please consider it as an option. All right, guys. Anything else before we're 9 minutes over time, but I love these things. So, anything else before we hop off? Anybody going once? I have five 5 grams, five grandchildren. All right. Eileen says she have 5 of them. We have 5 new shareholders, guys. Thanks to Eileen for their grandchildren. Sharon, thanks for another great presentation. Yeah, man, Sharon. And I'm in town for a few days if you want to link up in person, Sharon. Happy to connect. Yeah, thank you everybody for participating. For me, this is the most important quarter we just went through. To sign the engagement, pay the investment bank, lock in 10 million as an underwritten offer and guaranteed we get the list as the first Caribbean-owned company to go public on a major US stock exchange, give people access to the region. And just so you understand why this is going to be a big deal, if you go and search right now, there's about 17 publicly traded companies in the US that are founded by a Black person. So when we go public and we will be number 18, this is less than 20 publicly traded companies in the United States that are founded by a person of color, and we get to be part of that story. So that is how big of a deal this is going to be when we do get it to list. So stay tuned and hang on. Is our rocket ship we're about to be in. And if you have some deals, come talk to us. If you have some land in the Caribbean, come talk to us. We have stuff that we can do. Eileen has brought some stuff to me, right? This is how we got into the house and stuff, thanks to Taryn and John and Tanya. So bring it to us. Let us see if we can do something with it and turn it into even more value, guys. Don't just sit down there wondering what you want to do there or try a thing. Let's figure out. Yeah, I know Mapex has some ideas as well. So let's figure it out and let's go from there. Well, thank you very much for your time. Joseph Barrow, so you and I can talk over in the next few days as well. But thank you very much. We have some big check writers on here and small. Everybody has played a key role in this. I really want to just shout out 2 people in particular though. Dad, Mom, thank you. They have put a lot into this to get it to this point. And then Sarah there and Cliff, especially I want to shout out. They provided initial capital and allowed me to buy the KD Group stock in Jamaica. After I already have written, they wrote a pretty big check. They jumped in last minute, gave me the stock to buy the shares when they're available and got us into that. So thank you for believing in this and what we're doing. I have an awesome team and I can't wait to celebrate with you guys, ring this bell and figure out where we're doing this after party. Yeah, man. Does it make sense? A quick question come up. Does it make sense for a US person to also invest in the JA fund when listed on the JSC? No, actually, no. It don't make sense. It don't make sense. Stay as a US person here and own the entity that manages the fund. We go end up owning shares in a lot of those entities, specific ones anyway. So it don't make sense to double dip. I would be honest. Unless you have Jamaican dollars and you don't want to convert it in the US and lose, then it would make sense. But otherwise, as a US person, stick to the US jurisdiction whenever possible is what I would say. Just stay here.
David, I have a question for you.
Yes, Sandra.
In regards to like the entities that are Jamaica based, where potentially, right, you could have investors in Jamaica be a part of what you're doing here. How are we spreading the word to, get people in the marketplace there to be interested in your company?
So we're not spreading the word because we can't. Right? I need to be very careful. As you know, we cannot generally solicit outside the US. So we need to
Right.
be very careful. So we've had what has happened is that people have come to me or Tanya privately, or to people like Tarn, Peralta. It's like, hey, so man, I'm reading about this Blue Mahoe thing and you know David and you invested, but I'm local. How can I get in? And then the answer is, oh, actually, we are creating a local vehicle and you can come and sign this paperwork. I can't actually approach them. We can't go to them. They
Right.
have to ask to get in. And then we can say, actually, yes, you can get in. So that is a very fine line. And I really need to be careful that we don't cross it. So I can't go on TV in Jamaica and say we have a Jamaican entity. I can't. I can't.
Right.
Well, I can say I'm a Jamaican entity. I can't tell them we're accepting Jamaican. Not publicly. If somebody say, hey, send them a phone call, we talk to them. You can tell them, I can't tell them. I'm a representative of the company. I can't tell them. You
Right.
could tell your cousin, say, hey, so the man, them have a little thing in Jamaica you could jump into and it can go public. You can tell them. I can't tell them. Those of us who are employed to the company, we cannot go and say it. So you would have to go and tell your cousin or your brother or whoever and say, oh, you could get it now. Let me set up a call.
Right.
So you could do that. But please don't post it. Don't go on Facebook and post and say, hey guys, you can don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, man. We have learned so much about compliance. It is having worked for a hedge fund and private equity, this is even more serious on a compliance standpoint. So every I dotted, every T crossed. We cannot afford to make a mistake. And we've seen what has happened in Jamaica in particular. So we need to be very careful about that. But that's why we'll hurry up and direct list it, because then it allows us to talk about it after it's direct listed, and then anybody can start getting in after that. So I meet with a lawyer next week and we finalize that. We have the board in place already and we can direct list very quickly in Jamaica. It's actually shocking how easy it is to direct list. And here, Tanya, that's why I'm here. Oh man, let me see. I missed those other questions. What was this? List of books that explain our trajectory. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's cool. I will get you the books. That is interesting. Somebody, I might actually send that out when I send this out as well. When I send out recording tomorrow, I'll just include the list of the books as well. So you guys, there's a few books that actually explain exactly what we're doing. So you can understand, how does Blackstone work? Let me just read this. And I think that'll be good. So, but yeah, man, guys, big up Tanya. So 2 funds will be listed on JC by 2024. That's what somebody asking. No, 1. I want to list Blue Mahoe Capital Appreciation by December of this year. I'll wait to list the property fund. I don't want to rush. We're being guided by NCB Capital Markets on the property fund because they are arranging the funding from the pension funds. So I don't think we'll list before the end of Q1 2024. So my goal is Fund in Jamaica listed, Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. listed, then
2024, 2025.
It what?
2024 or 2025?
No, I know, as in this
You said
December.
24 a while
You
ago.
know, this
24.
December we want
Okay.
to list the local entity would list this Christmas, by this Christmas.
Okay.
Then we list Blue Mahoe Capital Inc. on the NASDAQ, then we list the property fund in Jamaica. So that's the sequence that makes the most sense. We're going to have enough capital and shareholders on the Jamaican entity based on what's happening now. And the asset is crazy. You only need 100,000 Jamaican dollars worth of assets to list it. And we already have like 3+ million. And we actually have about $10 million worth of assets in the Jamaican, 10 million Jamaican, let me be clear, worth of assets in the Jamaican entity to list. So we get to do something really interesting and then load up the thing after that. So we're excited. All right, guys, I appreciate all your time.
Yes, one question.
Yes, Pastor.
About the Jamaica bond. Can you
Yes.
say something about that?
All right. I was hoping somebody would bring that one up. So, of course, we are talking about doing a diaspora targeted bond. We want to launch that. That's actually what Blue Mahoe Private Credit is going to do. So private credit is the one that is going to lend out money. What it effectively does is going to borrow at 8% and it can lend at 12%, 15%. So it will be primarily the vehicle that we use to raise the bond. So that's what we're working on now. And we've met with somebody who could actually that you can grade the bonds. You don't have to do that, but we're looking at rating the bond and how much that costs. Do we consider doing that? Can they rate it in the US, the UK, Canada? We probably won't start with a rated bond, and we'll start in the US first. And we can raise up to $5 million at 8%, paying out for 5 years. And it would pay semi-annually, so every 6 months, it would pay out the interest. So basically 4%, 6 months, 4% the next 6 months. And so we're pretty excited about that, but we decided to just go a little bit slower. Once the engagement opportunity came with the investment bank and it was underwritten, I need to make sure, because I was guaranteed 10 million. So I said, all right, let's go a little slower on the bond idea. It is waiting for us to launch. And we have some capital that could come on the balance sheet any minute now. And we do have some people running us down. So we will launch a bond through private credit this quarter. Right? All our funds really will launch this quarter. Private credit will launch that bond, and we already have places to put it to work. Some of that money will be used to build the houses, because we don't want to use all equity. We need to use debt to also build some of those properties as well. So private credit is what actually will do the bond. I hope that answers you clear. Lyle. Yeah, Lyle, what is your good news? I got a really nice text message today from Sprint, Lyle. So that's your good news, Lyle. I mean, Lyle is one of our biggest supporters of investors, and I'm excited. He's going to get a nice surprise. But I got a great text today, Lyle. So I'll call you tomorrow, or I'll call you tomorrow and update you. I got a great text message today. And we're excited about where these entities are going, and we think we're solid. And you're going to hear me talk about MAPEX again. I really want you to understand, Joseph is somebody we've trusted and worked with a long time. Joseph was one of the first investors in what became Blue Bowl Capital. Wrote a pretty sizable check, but MAPEX has quite some good projects going right now, and we can put capital to work in a very safe way that's helping these farmers acquire equipment and focus on food security and some new projects across the Caribbean, starting in Jamaica. So we will literally, out of the 10 million, we have about 2 million are earmarked to go to MAPEX based on what they've been able to do from a history standpoint, operating history, which is very, very safe about doing that, and we might end up doing more. So thank you very much, Joseph, for continuing to do that. Our office actually in Orlando is at MAPEX. All our mail goes there. So that's family. All right, any last question before we come off, guys? All right, I think that's it. I think that's it. So we're done. I'll be in touch with you guys. I'll send out the recording tomorrow, and I'll include the visual so you have that, the link to obviously the insurance part, and I will make sure I have that book list so you guys can just quickly understand Blackstone Berkshire, what exactly you mean. I mean, save you the trouble of having to Google all that. So thank you very much, Tanya. I'm available right after, and we can talk from there. So really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
David, thank you.
Yeah,
Madonna.
man. Thanks.
Oh.
Good night, everyone. Have a great week,
Yeah,
or the
man.
rest of the weekend, actually.
Yeah, the rest of the week. Stay safe tomorrow with trick or treat, please. And make sure you vote. Vote early. All right.
All right, I'm calling you now, David.
Yeah, man. I'm going to close this out.